C'est bon? Okay, so welcome. Vraiment, we are very happy to see a lot of people. So thank you to join us here at the Knowledge Hub, and also for the people who are on the video by YouTube. It's a great pleasure for us to welcome here in the Knowledge Hub. It's the first time that we organize an event in the library, and we are very happy. Maybe the start of a long series, maybe. We can try. So today, the project began last summer when the academic direction asked us to promote Audencia's research, and we all agree with that. But we also wanted to highlight issues that matter us to the Knowledge Hub, and perhaps. Maybe, as you know, over the past few years, we have been working to include more diversity, gender and minorities subjects in our collections. And we have, you can find this commitment on our website. Particularly, we have 2 pages on decoloniality and gender equality. So it's this subject are very important for us. And we decided to create a series of videos featuring 5 women researchers from Audencia and focusing on feminism. So, and for us, it was also the opportunity to promote our collection by sharing their readings. We have, you have it on the table. So, and we imagined that the video could be posted on our website during the first semester, and with the goal to end with the final event around the 8th of March. And we are 7th of March, so we are here, you are here, so we are very happy. And we decided to for this event to make a round table. So thank you to Claire, Neil, Julia, Natalia and Christine, who accepted to do the videos and sharing their research and pedagogy. And thank to Jennifer, who accepted to host for hosting the round table. So thank you to all. Thank you. And I would like to thank also Victoria, Anna, and Florine, who are working here in the Knowledge Hub, and because they came up with the ideas, with the idea for the project. They presented the project to the professors and conducted the interviews and organized this event. So thank you, Florine, Anna, and Victoria. Thank you to the technical assistants with Jean-Philippe, who filmed the videos and edited the videos, and thanks to Steven also for the organization of the roundtable, for the technical aspect, and for the broadcast too. And thank you also to Alexis, Laura, and Jean-Baptiste for the pole events who help us for this event. So I will not be longer, and I let Jennifer to introduce the roundtable, and I hope you will pass a good moment. Okay,
thank you, Fabienne. It's a real pleasure to be here to host the panel today. On behalf of Knowledge Hub, but also on behalf of CARES, which is Audencia's faculty community for action and research on environment and societies. So our conversation today, and we'd really like it to be a conversation, is around the theme of women. I'm joined, as Fabienne said, by 5 of Audencia's scholars with a deep interest and expertise in this topic. So just to set the panel in context, so International Women's Day falls tomorrow on the 8th of March. And while it's an opportunity to celebrate a lot of achievements, it's also a reminder that there are many challenges which remain. if we look globally, for example, while women make up half of the world's population, they represent less than 4% of the world's leaders. So we're going to kick off with a discussion around the table. Then we're going to open the floor to questions, both in the room and online. And I'm going to jump straight in and ask you all, firstly, quickly to present yourselves when you respond. But the main question, why this topic and why now? Who'd like to kick off? Julia?
It's already on. Hello, thank you very much for the introduction, Jennifer, and thank you so much for coming, everybody here today. So some familiar faces, and we really appreciate you taking time to spend this hour with us. My name is Professor Julia Szymko. I am the head of research at the Department of Organizational Studies and Ethics. I'm, yes, indeed, I'm deeply interested, not so much in the question of women, as in the question of feminism and gender and how it translates into the power relations. And I think sometimes, and maybe I would say even until recently, the topic of power has been of a particular interest to people who were in the political science and in sociology, and in our mundane lives there was something that we could ignore for our own convenience. But I think today, if we look at the headlines on the left-hand side, all of a sudden, either we want it or not, we realize that we are all get affected by power, the change in power, and of course we get affected also depending on which sociological category we represent. Either we like it or not. So we go back to the question of not only what we see in ourselves, but also how we're being perceived by those who look at us and decide what we deserve, what we can have, where we can go, what kind of future we can aspire for, etc. So all of it is being overshadowed by the question of gender and power. And I'm going to pass the mic.
So I think I'll take over. My name is Natalia Vershnina. I'm professor of entrepreneurship here at Audencia. I'm also deputy director for research, and I also wear another hat as a scholar on gender. I also work as a joint editor-in-chief of Gender Work and Organization, the top journal in the field that tackles issues of gender. And I think today is important. Why is it now? You've asked a very pertinent question, Jennifer. Because whilst we've been fighting for gender justice, we're nowhere near the outcomes that we've planned. 30 years ago, 189 government representatives have met together to discuss and set the agenda for gender justice. And we continue to see femicide, rape, we continue to see inequalities in organizations, and statistics doesn't lie. We like statistics because it shows very clearly the picture of the fact that ceilings exist, women are not, and other minorities are not making it to the top of the field where they could have the voice, where they could develop resistance and fight for the rights of specific groups. And I think it's important that, you know, what you see, you have a collection, very small collection of scholars here in front of you. We have a lot of people in this institution and the community, academic community, working on the topics of gender justice. But it is being sidelined, and we need to bring it to the center of attention. So talking about this, taking your voice is very important.
Thanks a lot, Natalia. My name is Christine Naschberger. I am a full professor at Audencia and in the same department as Julia, organizational studies and ethics. Basically, I'm interested, of course, in this topic because I'm doing also research and also some important part of my teaching is also based on DEIB, diversity, equality, inclusion and belonging. So I'm really interested in these kind of questions since a very long time. Why we are here today, yeah, as we already mentioned, Jennifer, and also in the introduction, tomorrow, the 8th of March, the International Women's Rights Day. I think we have achieved already a lot. We progressed a lot. For example, if we take gender pay gap. Because I'm also an ambassador of the Nigo training that we have here in the school. So basically, this is a 3 hours training for free that is suggested in an online version, but then also in a face-to-face setting. It is for free for women, and basically they are able to think about their negotiation strategies. So to come back also to use some figures, you know, we know that the gender pay gap in France is still about 22% when we put all the parameters into one basket. So depending on the working time, so all different, you know, parameters, also different sectors. And when it comes to the same job, also in 2023, because this was the latest, let's say, publication of Lindsay that had been published a few days ago. So we're still up to 4%. So my saying is, of course, we achieved already a lot. So let's look at it from the positive side. But we all probably are aware that women's rights and not only are aggressed on a daily basis. Natalia gave already some examples, and I think it's very important to raise awareness and also to bring it to the table and to talk about it. For me, the conversation and communication is really very important. And I'll hand over to
Claire.
Claire.
Hi, very nice to see you all here. Familiar faces, it's very nice to see you. I'm Claire Champenois. I'm professor of entrepreneurship in the same department as Natalia, entrepreneurship strategy and innovation. And I'm interested in feminism and gender as a woman, but mostly as a scholar interested in social justice and social mechanism, how we live together, how the question of power is at play, and the political issue. So it's one part of a bigger picture. So why this topic and why now? I must say I'm French, so I speak from a Western perspective, from a privileged position also. And first, I am quite grateful to our mothers, our grandmothers, who have fought for the rights we now enjoy tremendously, the right to study, the right to have an interesting work, the right to get abortion, to get contraception, the right to have a banking account. It's incredible, but in France it was in 1965 that women got that right, so it's really new. 60 years ago, it was our mother's generation. And we should not forget that these rights are fragile, and I think the news are reminding us how fragile these rights are. Just look at the US and the new fact that the states can now ban abortion, that 12 states have already banned abortion. So, these rights are fragile and we should not take them for granted, as many of my fellow French friends and classmates used to take them. We need to be aware and alert and protect these rights. So that's my, I think the first importance of the topic in my view. The second reason, and that connects to what you already said, is the fact that yes, there was a progress, but we're only halfway on the road to equality between men and women. Just another figure, if you talk about violence, just in France, 3 women every day die or try to kill themselves because of violence with their partner. I won't repeat the statistics you named, but these are very important, and we should also have them in mind. And what I find important is that our students, so you, get aware and get alert about this topic and understand that it's not an individual problem or an individual specificity, but that there are mechanisms that create this social stratification, that reproduce this domination, that we also call a patriarchal system. So understanding this is quite important. And also understanding that you have a role to play in it. Like, for example, I teach this course in a master for communication students, so they will work as communication professionals. And when we look together at the way women athletes are filmed, you see the male gaze quite everywhere. So male gaze is women are filmed, women athletes, so sport athletes, are filmed to please the main eyes, like in the movies. And so when you realize this as a student, you also understand you have a responsibility and you can play a role as a communication professional in how you will represent and present women you interview and you talk about. Oh, sorry, I'm very passionate,
Go
so
ahead,
now it's
Neil.
Neil.
Okay, hello everyone, and nice to see you all. Actually, not only women, nice to see some men here today, so it's important to recognize. So my name is Nilgün Arı. I'm an assistant professor here in Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Strategy and Innovation Department. And I'm the director of MSc in Entrepreneurship. So obviously this topic is also very important to me, and I'm looking at the topic from my background. So my background is in arts and design, and I would like to a little bit talk about it, why this could be an interesting angle. But also my background is coming from, I'm originally from Turkey, and I grew up there, and it's a country of systematic inequalities, right? Natalia talked about femicide, and we talk about achievements, but actually when I look at around the world, like including Turkey, the actually femicide is increasing, not decreasing. So in Turkey in the last decade, there were 3,000 women died, and possibly more, but most of them were considered as suicides because they were not reported as murdered. So these women are invisible, and a lot of things that women do are also invisible. So this is also an interest to me. What kind of work we do as women are invisible at home, at work, in our organizations, but also in society in general. So following up what Claire has said, that we take things as granted. Sometimes it's positive, right? So we think that things we achieve as taking for granted. But also there are a lot of things are reified, with things that we believe they won't change. It's reification, we believe that's the way it is, the social order. But my interest in research is to challenge these assumptions. We should not take it for granted. How can we see the world differently? I guess in the second questions we go a little bit more deeper in that, so maybe it's time to
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, so a really rich set of insights already from around the table. We're going to need 3 hours next time. You've talked a lot about the long road of where we've come from, the things we have achieved. What about going forward? What are the key challenges? What are the challenges that we are going to see in the future or that we're really facing now?
Well, if we take into account that only a few weeks ago we've had one of the biggest announcements around deletion of all diversity, equality, equity, inclusion agenda in US, and we know that we generally follow this in Europe. What does that mean for us? What does that mean for gender issues? What does that mean for women? Big questions. There are big assumptions about invisibility. Making something more invisible and making it based around, selection for best appointments based on merit completely ignores the fact that meritocracy exists and it's embedded in patriarchy and dominance of certain gendered order. We shouldn't forget that. We should reveal that, and we should create our HR practices, recruitment practices more transparent, so it is easier for us to see this. I mean, we'll give you examples from research, for example. When we look at entrepreneurship as a kind of as a space within that field, we talk about pitching for investment. So yes, of course, there's straight away disparity in terms of the outcomes for male and female founders. That is already stated. We have a lot of statistics on this, but what we reveal and what researchers do in this case, they're able to explain why this disparity exists. And we see some sort of line of research that tackles communication strategies, the types of questions venture capitalists ask, and the way they frame those questions for men about potential and for women around their ability to overcome the barriers. So when you start on a completely uneven playing field, how can individuals that represent different groups, they look differently, they represent different bodies, how can they achieve equitable outcomes?
Yeah, anyone want to respond?
Yes, I wanted to add something. When we talk about we, I think we have to be very careful here, and also I think we have to be very careful looking at the United States as a representation of where the world is going. So why don't we look at more positive examples? So Mexico elected the first female president with an absolutely spectacular record as a scientist, as a public intellectual, as the champion of the indigenous rights, etc. And I think it's extremely important also with the world becoming obsessed about one particular type of leadership, represented in obscurantism, in hatred, in proto-fascism, as the Trump administration. So why don't we look at just across the border? So the Mexico that has been presented or sometimes been mentioned as just a passive victim of the hostile policies of the current administration, but I think it is important to highlight that sometimes the visions of the future and how certain patriarchal values can be overcome, and the evolution in the society that should be celebrated, actually coming from global south. And again, I don't like to use these general categorizations, but I think we have to be very careful about generalizing this we. So we are going backwards? Well, not necessarily. Necessarily meaning that let's not look at the usual examples and let's not be so Western-centric in how we assess the situation and think about the recipes or the sources of inspiration.
Yeah, maybe to go along the same lines, totally agree with Julia, and so looking at other examples and not think there is homogeneity everywhere, but also instead of constantly opposing men and women, and why don't we focus on what we have in common, what we want to develop in common? There is the expression of planetary community, or I mean, some people are developing thoughts around that, which I found very interesting and especially apply to gender issues, because we all have in common that we wish to have a planet where we can live, which is not 45 degrees hot. We all want to have streets where our daughters can walk and not be aggressed, and they can make projects and plans. And if we start to focusing on this, what we have in common, what we want to build in common, I think this would lead us to reconsider the gender issue and get sometimes out of this division, which creates a lot of sterile debates, I think, sometimes. And the second challenge I also see, not being an expert on gender equality, so is this obsession with statistics. I think we should be a bit skeptical, and I'm sure you're going to correct me, but having a mere, what I mean is I see a challenge in having a mere statistical view on gender equality. If you only measure how many female occupied how many positions, you can be very superficial. And the issues, the deeper issues of, do you listen to women? Can women make decisions? Can they be recognized as knower, etc., can be put to the side, and because the statistics alone can look nice. So I would say beware of this, reducing gender issue to statistical progress.
I hope you don't mind I jump in, because this creates an interesting controversy. We can't live without statistics. It's impossible to live without statistics, because singular story is only one story of one particular context, of one particular setting. We need to collect more evidence. We need evidence-driven research that goes beyond a single story and a single phenomena to enable us not only to understand the scope and the scale of the effects that this has, and therefore without statistics we cannot exist. It is this statistics that tells us, it is this statistics that tells us that we're, despite all the efforts and despite the achievements, we're not moving in the direction, or our steps are too slow. Maybe Christine can add more statistics to this argument.
I don't want to add more statistics, but I think as well that measuring progress is important, also to show where we came from, where we are going. And of course, it's not the whole story. But I also would like to just emphasize, we talk a lot about, the advancement in the workplace, but there is still a lot of, let's say, things to do. My research is a little bit based on what we call reproductive health policies, so talking about the 4M, menstruation, maternity, motherhood, and also menopause. So there are some topics that are considered to be taboo in the workplace, and there is a lot of stigma still also on these kind of topics. And together with also colleagues from the UK and from Australia, we try to better understand, and also we try to benchmark finally also some practices, and we tackle this also from the legal side. So also we need to take into account legislation that is also different in other countries as well. But legislation is also helpful, and this is why, and then I finish with this, I believe it's also the context is different if we look at the United States and Europe, and at least in France, I feel, we are, at least at this moment, also protected by different laws. So companies also are supposed to invest in diversity and inclusion, and if they do not do anything, they have to pay sometimes also fines, for example, when we talk about disability. So that's also, the good news I would like to share, that the legislation in this case is also protecting us, or, hopefully.
Okay.
Neil, briefly on challenges.
Yeah, I just want to pick it up, the single stories, because I think we need to celebrate why. I think one of the problem is we can't suspend disbelief. We just want, everything to happen, progress, but there is value in suspending in disbelief. These things will change. And I see one of the biggest challenges, obstacles to me, is our inability to imagine an alternative can exist. Because we can, and because we must imagine an alternative. And I think art, to me, everyone is related to their research, so I will relate it to mine. And indeed, art and maybe single stories, maybe single feminist artists or others can show us that an alternative possible, and they can maybe dismantle our disbelief, because we need new ways, new frameworks, and to be able to think outside what we are taught. I think it's also my aim in the school, when I teach, when I do more research, what challenge I start with, what challenge that I can change, because the cost of this belief is outrageous. And we need to, start cracking this system.
Thank you. Okay, time is flying. So just a final quick response question from the panel. So is there kind of a closing message or a reflection that you'd like to make to sum up some of the things you've been working on, or the points raised today, something you want to leave us with?
Yes, I think one of the biggest paradoxes, and it does not only concern the situation that we observe with gender justice. So look at all the burning issues of the day. We have all the statistics. We know that we are not going in the right direction, but at the same time, we are also grieved by the sense of powerlessness. Just a famous paradox, never have we felt so free, never have we been so powerless. And where does this powerlessness come from is a very important question, the sense of powerlessness. So in philosophy, sometimes they talk about the difference between things being reality and things being real to us. Things being reality is what statistics can tell us. Okay, this is what surrounds us. But it's art and particular storytelling that makes these things real to us, because it forces us to express and to form something that we can call an empathetic engagement. So it's not enough to have an awareness, and this is what I would like to highlight over and over again. The awareness should move us to do something about it. And what can often instigate this action, this empathetic engagement that is needed, is art. Handmaid's novel, a movie about abortion in Romania, a painting that you cannot unsee. So, and I think it is very important to remember this distinction and not to be only well aware, but also to think about what can animate a more meaningful political, social, and personal engagement with whatever injustice you find personally insulting to you as an individual.
Absolutely beautiful, Julia. And moreover, each and every person recognizes when injustice is happening, they can see it, but they remain silent. So tackling the issue of self-censorship and changing it for you in that moment can make a difference. And beyond this, as a business school and as an institution, as an academic association, as a journal, we must engage with different people that are in powerful positions. We need to convince them to fight for this cause. And this engagement must be genuine. It cannot be a tick box exercise, because today we're going to talk about gender, today we're going to celebrate women. That doesn't mean the fight is over at the end of this hour.
Yeah, no, imagination is definitely key, and I cannot say it more beautifully than you did. What you said, Natalia, makes me think of our need of solidarity. We talk a lot about sorority, but feeling that you are connected to all the other women, and whenever you are in a situation where you have power, so you can influence or you can make decisions, that you share it with other women, and you have this sense, for me, is quite important.
Well, imagination should be my part. Bring it closer. I think this is not working. Yeah. Okay, I take this one. Yeah. Okay, yes, so, yeah, I guess I completely agree with the solidarity, but we are obsessed with our convenient lives, and it makes it very difficult to make any sacrifice. I think it deeply bothers me, but yes, as I believe, I think we can do otherwise. And I suggest a leap of imagination, because it's not something, not just storytelling, but it has to be a leap. You know, maybe it won't be incremental, a leap of imagination, and then this will first, I think, starts in the mind, but then it has to be acted in real life, in everyday life. So I think it has to be combined. So not just imagination, but action. Imagination in action.
I just would like to conclude with inclusion starts with I. So I guess we all have a part to play, and I'm very happy to see diversity here, of course, in the room, because diversity is a fact, but inclusion is an act. Thank you.
Super, thank you. So, open for questions. I think there's a microphone which is circulating among the audience there. So, if you have questions for the panel, thank you all for your insights. Really fascinating and really rich conversation. So, please go ahead. Any questions?
Yeah, so continuing on Christine, so what do you all do on your daily lives? I know, lots of research, but can you name some examples, to inspire us? What are, like these actions or leaps of imagination or so forth?
I could start with something that we've started about 4 years ago with the Middle Eastern chapter of Gender and Enterprise Network. So this is something that I've been part of for over 10 years now. So Gender and Enterprise Network is a UK organization that tackles support for career advancement of junior scholars in academia and in business schools. And we've set up a MENA chapter, and I've been now for 4 years a mentor on the program. And this year I've made a commitment to be a career mentor for about 10 women academics that are working in different parts of the MENA region. I do it with them online on regular basis, and I also do it with junior or young scholars or aspiring scholars here. And sometimes these conversations are hard. They make you cry, they make you emotional, but there are there's a lot of knowledge that does not get transferred. When women kind of move up the career, they sort of forget what it was like, and it's really important to share those stories. So sharing stories of how you've overcome certain structural barriers is very important, because it gives us, kind of equips us to deal with what's coming.
I'm doing the same, Natalia, because I am a graduate from the Munich University of Technology in Bavaria, and basically they also have a TUM mentoring program, and I'm part of that as well, so also supporting young women who would like to go into academia, or also my second, let's say, hat is about inclusion and diversity in organizations. And I'm also an ally here in the school. So talking about Audencia, it's called Écoute et Prévention. So the idea is to be a person, a resource person who is there for the colleagues if it's dedicated to mental health as well, because we can see also that this is an important topic and also in line with well-being in the workplace. And I'm very happy to be part of, because we're about 20 colleagues, we had been trained on that issue as well. And it's also, I think, an important part of my role to be a person, a resource person, and colleagues can come to talk to us in case if it's needed.
Thank you very much for your question, Virva. I think it's very difficult to be prescriptive here. It's not about, okay, here are the 10 points of how you can become a better feminist. It's not like this. I think we all have our ways of doing it and contemplating what we can do. So it can consider mentoring. It can be applied to some particular kind of political activism, and also something that we do outside of our roles as teachers or researchers, so in the everyday life. But to some extent, I think it starts from, let's say, inspiring or insisting on certain reflection, right? And inviting others to join in this reflection. But I think sometimes one of the most trivial acts in your interaction with the others can create a form of engagement. So, but as I said, so for me it would be very difficult here to be prescriptive. You will need to decide for yourself, but I'm sure some of the things that we have mentioned would resonate with you.
Yes. No. Okay. Yes, no. I don't want to be prescriptive and not sharing everything we do, but I think there is the work as a professional, what you do as a professional. So like for me, creating this class for the students was really a way to really put into practice what I believe, and say they don't have a space to express all these topics. So what if we create a course on that, and actually did open a space to listen to them, and that was extremely interesting, and I really think it's something we can do. It's also like maybe going to our executive direction, going to Natalia and telling them, look, there is this now news on research, on the news side with Trump banning some scientists, this war of science where gender is an issue and the word women and gender is banned. Shall we develop a program to host some of the researchers who are banned in the US, like the University of Aix-Marseille just did it? So taking our part as an institution, that's one side. I think the private part is very important because we are very privileged. I feel very, I don't want to take you with me, but I feel very privileged as a woman. And I really feel like it's, but that's very personal. I want to be prescriptive. But for me, it's very important to listen to other women, to help women who are less privileged. And that doesn't take place at Audencia. And that's it. I think, okay, if I summarize, it's exactly what Julia said, that you find your own way to express it. But what is common is that you are open to vulnerability. It's still, so what type of vulnerability are you concerned with? It's personal, but it's really an openness to vulnerability, to our dependence on others, to our need for care. So how do you do that? and also a sensitivity to being othered, considered as the other, marginalized. So when you listen, when you hear a sexist remark or a patriarchal remark, point to it or defend the person. I really believe in that.
It's a very guilt-driven question. Am I doing enough? What do I do everyday life? Is it as a woman? I think it's, then I thought about that we are always feel very sorry and apologizing, and we always think we are not doing enough to celebrate women as well as a woman. Because we always want to be agreeable rather than direct. So I guess if it's possible, I prefer to be direct and agreeable, but most of the time I still am agreeable than direct enough. And also same way, not to be ambitious, not to be further, because we women should know our place. I think if possible, I want to raise this voice, and I want to work towards it, so in everyday life, and also bring the voices of others. I think, because I'm, you know, foreign countries are expat, but I'm an immigrant. I mean, I'm French now, obviously, but I'm also an immigrant. So the voices of immigrants are important for me. And I saw actually a very nice, this morning, started in Berlin, because you said in Berlin Art School, a Turkish woman started a garden, and it was all about the weeds that are unwanted weeds. And she said she starts a garden that unwanted weeds and that come to Germany elsewhere. And that became a very productive point in the school, and everyone, you know, that share and feel belong. I think it's important also to feel belong where you live.
If you kind of think back to why this project was created, and I think it's really important to bring it back to the Knowledge Hub, the idea of bringing resources to students is caring about this too. The idea that this institution does negotiation training program is really important, because it has changed lives of many people. Women don't negotiate their salaries. It's really important. These kind of initiatives, writing retreats that we do, so that mothers that generally do not have the ability to be away from their children and at the same time engage in productive work of publishing articles, is also part of this. The community is supposed to help each other, but unless it starts somewhere in individual places and then becomes a concerted collective effort, we won't see change otherwise.
Super. Another question. Quick round of responses.
There is Marie on YouTube asking, how can business schools like Audencia integrate gender studies into their core curricula in a way that is inclusive of diverse cultural contexts, especially from underrepresented regions?
We already do quite a lot of this across different programs. So, for example, at bachelor level, we have a program called Management for Tomorrow. We have diversity management in international context as a course, which basically is completely focused on variety of cultural contexts, different legislative procedures, and how this affects the everyday life of workers as well as managers. Gender is part of the curriculum there. We also see gender theory being brought in at different kind of levels across all master's courses. It's very important. It's part of who we are, because we cannot achieve our goals as an institution around social and ecological transition and justice if we don't talk about those issues.
I think it's also, just to jump in, it's very important not to present it as something that is a separate course like it has been done with CSR, but I think it should be at the foundation of how we teach leadership, how we talk about economic justice, and also, again, what kind of examples and case studies we rely on when we try to demonstrate a point, and what kind of individuals end up being celebrated and put in the spotlight.
Other questions?
Female leadership is growing stronger in several far-right political parties in Europe. with figures such as Katalin Novak in Hungary, Giorgia Meloni in Italy, Marine Le Pen in France, and Alice Weidel in Germany. How can this trend be explained, and what impact does it have on the perception of political leadership in Europe?
I can start. There are different explanations because we see this. I saw this in UK, for example, with my own eyes. When Tory party has brought in several immigrant women, immigrant origin women, to represent migration policy, completely destroying all the goodwill that existed, and changing the initiatives, changing the the policy that was discriminatory to migrants. So what we see is how mainstream dominant parties using women's body, and particularly their mouth, as a voice piece to declare the war on people. And that is what's happening. We see populist movements, we see women rising to take charge. Women are, we already know from management literature that in crisis we place women at the most difficult role, because they seem to be really built up for crisis situation. They're very good at managing it, but the moment we move to a more neutral times, we see a change in leadership and change in power. This is what's happening. How we react to it is a different story.
If I can add here, so again, I think it's very important not to fall into the trap of essentializing women as just being kind, caring, empathetic, and left-leaning adults. So just how you can encounter the differences in the political opinions and stances among the male politicians, so very likely you're going to find it among women as well. So, and I think it's also a very important reminder that you cannot just, I would say, represent and talk about them as being kind of manipulated and put there in order to create this trustworthiness and transmit certain images in the times of crisis. I think there is more to this, and this just indicates a certain diversity within the political beliefs and political leanings among females. So, which is absolutely fine. I wouldn't try and make and present it as something that is extraordinary, abnormal phenomena. Absolutely not, because by doing it, again, you end up creating a very essentialist and a very exaggerated, and I would say also objectifying picture of women. Women can do bad things as well. It's fine.
Claire?
You talked about female leadership. I'm not sure that exists, and be careful not to essentialize it. I think we should all read again The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir, sorry. Really old book, but still very valid on that. It's the essence of a woman doesn't exist. You just have human beings who are different. Some can be authoritarian, some not. They can be men or women. And if you just look at Marine Le Pen, yes, she has a woman body. You can say that how she behaves is okay. Don't want to do a gender analysis here, but I'm not even sure she was chosen because she's a woman. Jean-Marie Le Pen, her father, it was more a family business where her father had created a right-wing party, extreme right-wing party. He had 3 daughters, so no choice. It had to be a daughter or someone out of the family. So I'm not sure the woman dimension really played a role here.
I mean, it's kind of a paradox, like Alice Weidel in Germany is also a lesbian, so she is voting against herself.
It's not the first time it happens. People, we can psychoanalyze it. Again, I wouldn't generalize. So there is I was just reading before this event started, there is an interview with her, and there is a biography that came out that tries to explain certain things that seem to us very strange. So we really have to go into each particular case. There are some commonalities between Giorgia Meloni and Alice Weidel, but these are different individuals, and they have their very different paths in politics. So
I think the concern is that they are used as instruments for dominant power to continue to reproduce the same old patriarchal.
Or they willingly turn themselves into these instruments.
Yeah, but they allow.
Let's not take away their agency. They know what they're doing.
But there are also a lot of women who voted for Trump. Yeah, that's also.
And maybe we could also mention, you know, this movement that is existing in the US, but also in France, you know, talking about threadwives, so traditional wives. And I just heard also this morning when I was listening to Anne-Cécile Mayfair, who is the president of La Fondation des Femmes. And basically, every Friday morning at 7:20, she's giving a kind of a talk, and she talked about, the tomorrow's, let's say, manifestations that are taking place all over in France. And it seems to be that there will be also, you know, not only, of course, women in favor of women rights, but also, the opposite. So also women who are into a very traditional profile as well, and who are openly homophobic, openly against LGBT plus rights, and so on. I guess everyone knows what I'm talking about, and it seems to be in France they're called Nemesis and Antigone. You know, these are two names of French collective movements as well, and they say that they are feminist. So it's also interesting to see that probably, today, and it's not new as well, we see that also on social networks, you know, people express themselves in a very positive way often, but also on the opposite in a very negative way. So there is also a lot of hate, a lot of negative, let's say also statements, remarks, comments that we can find on the internet. And some people say as well, as we are in a movement and in a change process, sometimes, you know, some people would like to go very far, and for other people, it's sometimes the change goes too quick. So this can also have a kind of a boomerang effect, bouncing back, and then hopefully, you know, we will see in the future, more the positive side of it, of course, as well, and women getting together, and men as well, of course, tomorrow for the cause of the International Women's Rights Day.
We have just a couple of minutes left. We have time for one last question. Speed question, speed response, no?
I've got one left.
Quick one, quick.
Quick. You've mentioned USA. Faced with the current censorship of women and minorities at university in the USA, with the banning of terms like woman, girl, minorities in academic research, how can we ensure that gender equality remains an essential subject of study and debate? What actions can we take on our own scale to defend academic freedom and change mentalities in our professional communities? Sorry, it's not short, I lied.
No, it's an excellent question. So, but the answer is very simple. Sometimes insisting on certain values means being transgressive and saying no to power. Just because you're being told to do so doesn't mean that you have to do it. So this would be my answer.
I will continue to teach the things that I teach, and I will continue to defend the rights of different groups, because this is what gives meaning to our academic career. Being very passionate about those topics. And I don't think Europe is going to forget about all of these issues. These issues will be on the agenda because we're doing this, because people like Florence, who is in the audience and who leads Academy of Management's division for diversity, equality, equity, inclusion, is here in the audience because of these voices and continuing to talk about this and raising the table stakes. It's very important that we do so. And I hope that even after today's event, if you haven't looked into these topics, we were exciting enough for you to now discover more and engage in conversations around this.
"30 seconds.
No, I think you said it all. For us, it doesn't change much because we're not in the US. So for me, it raises more the question of, do we try to do something to help the scholars who work on gender and on women in the US? That's the question it poses to us.
Well, I think I'll go to, does it work? It works, okay. Yeah, so I agree with Natalia, we must continue. And I go back to the absurd philosophy. We can assume that Sisyphus is happy. And even though the meanings are breaking down, even though the whole thing is absolute, making no sense, but we must continue. We should bear the stone, the rock. Yes.
Okay, thank you all. We're going to have to close the session because we're out of time. But a reminder that this conversation continues. Okay, Claire's master course on feminism and gender from norms to emancipation opens later in March. Audencia is also hosting the Gender Work and Organization Conference from the 21st to 23rd of July. Yeah, with Julia and Natalia here and many people in the organizing team. So the conversation continues, but for today, that's it. But a big thank you to Knowledge Hub for hosting us, for the technical team as well. Thank you to all of the panel members. And of course, a big thank you to you, so many of you here in Knowledge Hub and online as well. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much to all, Jennifer and our researchers. We are very happy to organize this event. I hope you spend a good moment, you here and also the people who are on YouTube. So thank you very much to come here. Thank you.